When you fast, it's like revving up all of the engines within your body. You're going to have brain power. You're going to have energy, focus, mental clarity. Giving your body that rest allows it to actually heal and recover. Do your cold exposure, then get in a sauna. Then do the cold and get in a sauna. Ashwagandha is an adaptogen, which means essentially it adapts to what the body needs. One of my favorite things is acupuncture.
I want to unlock my body's potential.
Just like we did.
We just did a little meditation.
Unlocked.
I was hoping that might be one of the biohacking methods, but I've heard of meditation. I haven't heard of some of these. Dr. Ron Dummar, this is the Be Well Now podcast. Why did you want to do a podcast about biohacking?
Well, it's always fascinating to me, and I think to a lot of people, how someone can have a serious injury take place in their body and not even feel for it at first, right? Like a soldier on a battlefield can have a significant wound and still just be working and fighting on and going forward. And then he gets into the nurse's tent and she's trying to change his bandages and he's screaming, right? So what I'm saying is there's something inside our bodies that has the potential to provide maximum capability for pain-free living, maximum capability for a life of vibrancy. All we have to do is tap into it.
How do we do that?
We do that with our 6 biohacking tricks that we'll provide for you today.
Ooh, 6 biohacking tips. By the way, if you're just finding us now, we've been podcasting for years. We're more than 100 episodes deep at the Be Well Now podcast. If you could, subscribe to us on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to us. We're such a small channel. This is a passion project for us, isn't it?
It has been for many years.
It has been, this podcast. So a little thing like that provides a jolt of energy and just like someone's listening, and the numbers are going up, and we do this to serve, but it feels nice to just get a comment or just a like or a subscribe. If you're getting value later on, you can do it then as well.
And while we're at it, what we're thinking we want to do is we want to put Nick in a reclining chair. We've also thought maybe we could just put him in a lawn chair. So maybe you could give us some feedback on that, whether we should have Nick in a lawn chair or in a nice, cushy, reclining chair for this podcast.
Oh, because we're going to upgrade the look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What should we do?
I'll do lawn chair.
Lawn chair? You want the lawn chair?
Yeah.
Make it like a deck, like sitting in the back.
That's
on
fine.
the back porch.
Perfect.
Looking out at the woods. That could be nice.
We're recording this on the eve of 4th of July. When it comes out, I can't guarantee it'll be in the month of July, but I believe it will. This podcast is meandering. Should we get to the points?
So what are we going to do to get better? First of all, let's talk about intermittent fasting, shall we?
Ooh, I love intermittent fasting.
It's such a hot topic.
Let's talk about it.
People have really loved diving into fasting. I think there's so many benefits people can garner from fasting. First of all, I would say most of us in the United States eat too much. We nourish our bodies too little and we eat too much. I've always said we need to treat ourselves like a high-end sports car. So we should be maximizing the nutrients, the nutrient density that we're putting into our bodies, and we should be revving up the capability of our body to be able to access those nutrients as well. So how can we do that? Well, one of the best ways to do that is to fast. Because when you fast, it's like revving up all of the engines within your body. It's like, whoa, now we're awake. Now we're ready. We need more nutrients. Give it to us. We're ready to receive it. And so those things that you introduce to the body shortly after fasting are going to be taken up in quick supply. And then they're going to be delivered so rapidly and so proficiently to the body. You're going to have brain power, you're going to have energy, focus, mental clarity, concentration, all sorts of things that you'll be able to quickly heal and recover. So you need to aim for, I would say, a minimum of 12 hours if you're just barely beginning fasting, okay? There's something that is called like the 16-8 rule, which is aim for about 16 hours of fasting, right? And 8 hours where you're consuming, like an 8-hour consuming window. But one thing that you can do is really just say, okay, what time do I go to bed at night? And then stretch that out for 12 hours so that your first meal is 12 hours after that point.
Well, I know there's been a lot of talk about intermittent fasting. Some people say they're not doing it anymore. But I think for a lot of people, it can be just an effective way to time restrict your eating, which generally means you're going to eat fewer calories. And discipline feels good. If you can actually do this, it's one way. It's like making your bed times 10. So a lot of people intermittent fast in the morning. I actually will, because I have my kids a couple of days a week, 2-3 days a week. Other times I don't have plans necessarily socially, so I'll just like skip dinner. And I go through these weird phases. I only know what it's like to be me. So I don't know what it's like to be anybody else. I'm not the doctor. But I'll get a little hangry. And then I'll start to get cold.
You have a little cravings. Do you have cravings for specific things?
Oh, yeah. I'll get a headache. I'll get testy. I'll get hangry. I'll get cravings. And then I'll just be like, is this worth it? And I'm like, yeah, it's worth it because I've done it enough times now. And then by about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, my fingers and toes are getting cold because I can tell that my body's like trying to conserve. And then I'll go to bed, and the next morning, whenever I break my fast, I'll be like, I skipped a meal yesterday. Like, I fasted. Even if the autophagy stuff is bogus, which you can talk about, even if I end up making up for it by feasting when I break my fast, which I try not to, but sometimes it happens. So even if the calories are a net, just the discipline of, I said I was going to do it, I did a hard thing, and I feel good about it. Also, what makes sense to me is, does give how much of our body and mind is connected to the gut? And the gut seems like such a mystery. Giving that gut a chance to rest, even if there's stress in there, even if there's cortisol because it's stressing out. This is just my experience because I do intermittent fast a lot, is that I'm like, I just gave it a chance to not be digesting food for a 16-hour window.
Gave it a rest.
I think that's good. Even though sometimes it feels like it's gurgling and the body seems stressed out when you're fasting. Can you comment on anything I just said?
You gave it a great rest, which is fantastic.
Because I've been doing this for like a few years now.
Giving your body that rest allows it to actually heal and recover. Fasting is, it's very traditional even. We've known about fasting for thousands of years. This is not something new. Like look at any culture, any religious practice or tradition, they all have their own approach to some sort of fast. There's Ramadan fasting, there's traditional Christian fasting. There's Lent. There's like giving certain things up, right? Which is also a fast. Doesn't have to necessarily be food, right? But it can be a fast from an activity. But when we're specifically talking about food, it does. Your body enters a zone where it knows we have to become more efficient. We have to increase our efficiency, and we have to clear toxins that are maybe keeping us from being as efficient as we could. So that's where some of that autophagy comes in as well. We're clearing the debris. We're cleaning up toxins. We're eliminating debris from our body. And that doesn't happen if we're continually consuming food. Oftentimes in this hyper-focused blood sugar world, people have focused a lot on, eating every 2 to 3 hours, trying to keep your blood sugar perfectly still and stable and preventing any sort of spike of blood sugar or of insulin. Well, we're actually finding a lot of research now that suggests insulin spikes, as long as we don't have too many of them, insulin spikes are actually very good for the body. Well, what does that mean? That means you have a period of fasting, and then you consume food, boom, and then you have a spike in insulin, right? And then that recovers. And as long as you're not having too many spikes of insulin, then your body is going to be able to be a lot healthier. Well, if you're having repeated spikes, you begin to develop something we call insulin resistance, which then sets the cells up for an inability to properly process or even meet the metabolic demands that are required by your body. Okay, so yes, autophagy is significant. It does occur. And the body, it becomes way more efficient at cleaning the debris, at detoxifying itself. And oftentimes people think about detoxification as something that they have to do, like a pattern that they have to follow. Juices, they have to drink this juice or consume this syrup or, do all these different things to try to push their body to detox. But the reality is all of our organs are designed. We have specific detoxification organs. And you mentioned one of those, Nick, which is our largest, most significant detoxification organ, which is our colon, our GI, our gut. And if our colon and GI and gut is not having an opportunity to allow itself to kind of repair and clean, and we don't have that opportunity to go over across all of those areas of the gut and heal them and say, okay, let's recover here, let's repair there. Because if we're continually sending debris in the form of food and chyme product over that, then what's going to happen? We can't heal. We don't have any process or mode for that. So if we do get an infection down the line or down the road, or if we do have an exposure to something that's irritating our gut lining, how do we heal from that if we don't get it a rest? So yeah, intermittent fasting is a significant way for us to be able to recover and to heal. Now, there is a caveat as well, because you can do too much. It is important that you don't overfast, that you don't push yourself too much. And almost like, again, the same idea with the insulin, where having occasional spikes is really good for your body. Well, having occasional moments of fasting is actually really good for the body. And then it needs to be nourished, right? And then you can, a little bit later, do a fast again, right? So that's really the way to approach the fast, because you don't want to deplete. In Chinese medicine, it's about kidney yang, it's about kidney jing. So you have a specific amount of energy, right, that's available for the body. We could call this cortisol and adrenals, right? So the body's regulated by a lot of this as far as our energy. And we can just totally shoot our adrenals if we're fasting, especially if we're working out repeatedly. And then also fasting, we're denying our body of so many things and nutrients that it really needs in order to heal and repair. Then we have to be careful with that.
You know, I'm now just fully embracing this whole thing of like listening to your body and experimenting and seeing what works. The tough thing with experimenting is sometimes you're experimenting and you still got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And if I experiment and it goes wrong and I still have to show up in my day-to-day life for my kids and for my work, and I don't feel good, and it's because I experimented with the wrong thing, fasting too much, little too much of this, little too much of that. Yeah, it's a difficult thing, but I think experimenting is the sweet spot, because only we know our bodies better than anybody else.
Absolutely.
And once we start to listen to them, we can start to be like, I did this, I did that, this worked, this didn't. I mean, I kind of know what works for me with fasting, even if I haven't done it for a while, because I got that muscle memory, but I still haven't done a long fast, and I was going to actually consult your wisdom on that, which we could do for another podcast, like a multi-day fast. What would that look like? Who would be a good candidate for it? But you just think generally fasting sometimes is good? Yeah,
I think fasting, I would say at least doing once or twice a month fast is ideal.
Of how long?
Of a minimum of, I would say a minimum of 16 hours.
Okay.
Right? So, but if you can do intermittent fasting, if you could do it for a week out of a month, that would probably be great, right?
Whether that's 7 days in a row or 7 days?
Yes, right, yeah. So what you could do ultimately is you could do a 24-hour fast, but consume liquid, consuming fluids, right? Or what you can do is say, look, I'm going to, if you're doing just one day, only one day a month, could you do a 24-hour fast where you don't consume any liquid and you don't consume any food?
Oh, no liquid too?
Can you do that? It's possible. You can do it 100%. Yeah.
Intermittent fasting is no food, right? Or do you see no liquid, no water too?
So intermittent fasting is mostly focused on no food, right? And it's ideal. We want water. We want to stay hydrated because that's part of what helps us eliminate, right? It's part of what helps us to cleanse and eliminate things from the body. So traditional fasting has been no food, I would say, but that doesn't mean no water. However, there are certain groups that do practice no fasting, or fasting meaning no food, no water.
All right, we're 15 minutes in this podcast.
Well, we got to get booking.
Fasting's great. Another one that's big, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Cold exposure, ice baths, cold plunges. Yeah, so
cold exposure is really beneficial, as long as it's not taken too far. And you and I had a conversation about this, because people can actually make themselves sick by depressing and suppressing their immune responses. Initially, what it actually does is revs your body up. It revs up your immune system. It revs up your adrenals. It gets you excited and going, and it really helps your mitochondrial function. And so it really upcharges and upregulates a lot of the systems within the body. But that's if it's done infrequently. If it's done too frequently, what will happen is the body begins to have a more difficult time actually getting back to core temperature, and it fatigues. And so what I usually say to people is, if you're going to do cold therapy, which I am a big fan of, cold therapy is really great for as an anti-inflammatory effect. It stimulates, it does stimulate specific neurotransmitters to be produced in the gut. It helps actually with serotonin and with GABA as well. So there's a whole host of benefits that we get from doing cold exposure. But again, if we're not able to get our body temperature back up in an appropriate amount of time, then we're going to end up tanking. And that's not where we want to be. So I usually recommend to people to combine it, to do the cold exposure, but then to do contrast therapy. So combine it with a sauna. So do your cold exposure, then get in a sauna. Then do the cold, then get in a sauna. So that you're doing hot, you're doing the contrast therapy, hot, then cold, then hot, then cold. Finish with heat. Always bring your body temperature back up to warm so that you can control that and have a very stable temperature.
What about just oscillating your shower temperature at home?
You can absolutely do that.
I was thinking
if you're down with that. You're down with that. I
was hardcore
shower, right?
on cold plunges a few years ago, and then I ended up getting sick a bunch, and I was like, I need to figure stuff out, and I still haven't figured it out, and I've been scared of cold ever since because I've done it enough times. I've probably done at least 60 cold plunges, and like that's more than most people. Not like a hardcore Wim Hofer, but like when I kept getting sick as a sort of like common denominator, I'm like getting sick is so devastating to my routine and my life. I just don't really play with cold anymore. And that makes me sad because I like to get out of the science and more into the what feels right. And that's just my own personality. I love that you're based in science, but also in Chinese medicine and all the different things. And those are scientific, but I'm just rambling. I look at the water and I'm like, I feel called to it. I feel like that's a natural thing as a human. And then I put my feet in it and it's really ice cold. And I'm like, I was made for this. Like humans were made to get in the river every once in a while. You know, rivers were cold thousands of years ago as we were, you know what I mean? Like there is
and
probably
in a way it enlivens you.
Yes,
it really does.
I know that I'm supposed to be in this water sometimes.
Mitochondria gets functioning, everything gets moving. And so I do like, if you're down with it and you're someone who can do that, some people just mentally can't get over it because they're so used to the warm shower, the hot shower. Yeah. But if you can do a cold shower, or if do contrast on and off, on and off, on and off, go for it. Cold plunge, I think it's a great way of doing it. Jumping into a mountain lake or into a stream, I think is probably one of the most ideal ways of doing it. Going to my family and I, we went to the hot springs the other day. You know, going to the hottest pool, staying in there for a while, and then jumping in the coldest pool and going there for a while. Hot to coldest, hot to coldest. And that's what we just kept doing that, right? And I love the idea of challenging the body, moving between temperatures, right? But we also went a number of years ago. There's a great one in Steamboat Springs, Strawberry Hot Springs. And they have their hot springs right next to the river runoff. So it is ice cold river. And we would get into the river until we felt our feet go numb. And then we would jump into the hottest one we could. And when we jump into that hot pool, you can't feel anything. You're like, oh, I don't feel anything. And all of a sudden, the heat rushes in, right? And you feel it again. So,
like a natural way to have fun.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. In my family, we like it. I did it with my kids. I was really teaching them contrast therapy, but we were just having fun doing it. And now they do that for their sports. That's one of the first things. If they have sports injuries, they want to fight inflammation, they have soreness. What they'll do is they'll start filling up the tubs at my house, and then I'll see water trails all over and towels, and then they'll often do the salt, magnesium salt with it as well, Epsom salt, and then they will use one bath will be filled with ice, and the other one's going to be hot, and so they enjoy that, and it's good for them. It's good for their muscles. It's super healthy for them, and very restorative. So I would say 100%, consider temperature changes. Think about it also, the way it happens in the world in our seasonal changes. Our bodies are meant to go through changes. Like the way nature is designed is for our bodies to adapt to changing temperatures. Okay. So there's 4 seasons, right? So you have these seasons that transition, and we're going through these movements. Now, the transitions from hot to cold is very slow, right? On some level, it allows us to say, okay, we can transition to there, but it's cold is cold, right? And we have whole seasons that are dedicated to times of cold living, and our body needs to adapt to that. It needs to transition to taking on a little bit more fat, to maintaining a little bit more internal thermal regulation, like temperature regulation, and the same thing in the heat. Our body needs to be challenged by hot and by cold to regulate temperature, and that's one of the things that these cold plunges, shower, cryotherapy, snow rooms, those things do.
Let's talk about nootropics, these brain boosters.
Yeah, nootropics. This is a really fun topic right now, I think, too. A lot of people are trying to eke out every ounce they can out of their brains. I think that, that they want as much brain power and action and activity as possible. And I think one of the areas that brought this onto the scene is focus and memory and concentration. I think really ADHD, drawing attention to the ADHD phenomena that occurred because we have a system that tried to put a bunch of boys who are very active into chairs and to be inactive and to focus on words and writing and reading and things, right? Of course, they're going to be hyperactive in those scenarios and situations. But anyway, we needed to find nootropics, brain stimulators, to help them to focus. And obviously we did through a variety of medications, but there's a number of herbals that can really be beneficial for you. One of those that a lot of people have heard of and has really hit the scene, I'd say, it's been used traditionally in a variety of different cultures, almost for like a spiritual advancement or for a transcendent type experience, and this is ayahuasca. So ayahuasca is a nootropic and should be used. If you're going to use this at all, you need to make sure you're working with an expert or working with somebody who is very, very familiar with it in the spiritual space of that work. Many places, the unfortunate thing with ayahuasca is that in many places it's not legal, right? And so you have to check with that as well and make sure that you're pursuing it in a legal way, in a legal fashion. Other ones that are really good, though, are things even just like ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an adaptogen, which means essentially it adapts to what the body needs and is going to help provide mental stimulation to support your ability to improve your focus and concentration. 2 others that I like ginkgo, Panax ginseng. Those are actually really good brain stimulators. One of the things that people don't realize about ginkgo is oftentimes they'll buy the cheaper form of ginkgo, which is ginkgo nut.
Right.
And that does have really dense, deep fats in it. And those fats maybe help with digestion and maybe help with lipid profile, but they're not going to be as beneficial to the brain and brain power because ginkgo doesn't immediately go to the brain, especially ginkgo nut, but ginkgo leaf does. So if you're using ginkgo leaf, it's a much better nootropic than the ginkgo nut. So make sure you're knowing which one you're using, or consult a professional that can make sure that you're using the proper one. Another one that a lot of people have not maybe been familiar with, or they know about, but don't realize that it's an option or a possibility in the biohacking space, is nicotine. People using nicotine for, again, that focus, that memory, concentration. You can use it as...
You're not recommending smoking it, though.
Cigarettes. You definitely don't want to smoke, yeah. So the way that you would really use nicotine is either gum or a patch. And you would get like the 7 milligram patch and then cut it into strips. You only need like 1 milligram a day. Some people
No way you've ever used nicotine before, have you?
I've not.
Okay.
Nope.
I was going to say,
not.
you're talking about cutting it up. It sounds like an expert. I'm like, there's no way Dummar's ever.
No, I have not. I don't do that, but I have recommended it for patients that have needed it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So there's what product? I mean, they all seem so addictively cigarette-y. I don't know, like which one.
There's a rugby product that is really good. That brand generally has pretty good. They use a lot fewer chemicals in their products, and you're really wanting to avoid any sort of other synthetic chemicals in these and have them really just be nicotine as much as possible. If they've got a long list of preservatives, things like that, then don't use them.
Okay.
By the way, just a caveat with regards to nicotine, and we can do a podcast on this another time.
We're almost at 30 minutes and we have many.
But nicotine has been shown in a variety of different studies to not be the most addictive substance in cigarettes. More of the pyrazines are actually far more addictive, which are the synthetic chemicals that are added to the substances. So the cigarettes have a variety of pyrazines in them that actually are far more addictive and cause more of the brain stimulation and the release of dopa that trains people essentially to go back to it. So nicotine can be used safely under the direction of a trusted care provider in small amounts to help improve brain focus, memory, concentration. Okay. Another one, caffeine. Caffeine is actually
all these you can get addicted to, right?
Yeah, all of them. Absolutely, right? So caffeine. They
all sound good at first, but it's like, how do you
get off of it?
I have that kind of
do it anymore?
Pattern in my life where it's like if I find something that's good, I never want to live without it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from in my childhood or my, ape brain, but if it's a little bit's good, a lot must be better.
If a little bit is good, a lot does not necessarily mean it's better. I guess a lot is not necessarily better.
Yeah, but I always go.
But in the United States, that's like our MO right here. Yeah. It's like, hey man, if a little bit helped, a lot must really help, right? But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. Yeah. So if you do caffeine, it's nice to have L-theanine with it. And so if you get natural, the best way to get caffeine is through natural sources. If you're getting anhydrous caffeine, sometimes I've even seen on like these monsters, can I say that? Monster drinks, maybe I'll get, banned or something for that, or they'll
energy drinks.
Energy drinks in general, right? No. They'll put just caffeine, and then they won't put that it's anhydrous, which is the synthetic form of caffeine. And they'll try to make you think that they're using a plant-based and natural caffeine, which they're not. Anhydrous caffeine is extremely problematic. It is a singular compound, and it can overwhelm the functions of the body to make sure it pushes in to do what it needs to do nootropically with the brain. Whereas L-theanine is often combined with caffeine in the sources like plant sources, and it helps to mitigate a lot of the effects, but it keeps clarity and focus and concentration without having negative effects. So that's something to really pay attention to.
What else we got on there? Next.
All right, what else do we want to do? Let's talk about these health optimizing therapies, shall we?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So these are some things, and maybe this is forecasting, but these are some things that either now or in the very near future will be available here
at
for
Community
all of
Health
our
and Wellness,
patients
Heber
as
City,
well.
Utah. Continuing your cutting edge.
So a lot of these things we have, some of them are going to be available soon. So keep checking back with us. But one is ozone, ozone and ozone saunas. Ozone saunas are very beneficial. It's oxygen-rich substance. It's 3 oxygen molecules bound together, and it improves our ability to detoxify. It boosts our immunity. And from a Chinese medicine perspective, when you say boost immunity, they have a term, we call it Wei Qi, which is basically your external defense mechanism. So it's really improving from a Chinese medicine perspective, your ability to fight off external pathogenic invaders. And so that's something super cool. Infrared saunas is a big thing. Even heat or steam baths are really beneficial and good for our bodies. They really help with pain relief, relieving anti-inflammatory, fighting pain, and it's something that is very beneficial for patients to be able to receive. And the thing I like about the heat, again, is that the body tends to relax a little more generally with heat, with warmth. But also the infrared, the light, the wavelength itself actually activates the mitochondrial function, so we can begin the process of cleaning and cleansing and detoxifying the cells. So that's one of the really great benefits. PEMF is pulsed electromagnetic fields that recharge your cells, and they align your cells ultimately with the body and with the function and the purpose that, infrared sauna, working with the mitochondria and things like that too. One of my favorite things is acupuncture. We always offer acupuncture here, but this is definitely a biohack. You mentioned, I think, acupuncture before, how it actually was kind of a nootropic. It was a brain stimulator. It helped you to improve memory and focus and concentration, and even brought some memories or visions to you, right?
Yeah, it was like psychedelics without ingesting anything.
Yeah.
There was a stretch there where every time I sat in these chairs, it was like I was having visions that were like these metaphors for life. It was pretty crazy, and I would tell people about it. They're like, acupuncture? And it was like a moment in time. I don't know if I shut that down somehow. I don't get those anymore, but it's super powerful. I think acupuncture is great.
Very cool.
It's great.
And then also heart math, and brain rehabilitation. So those are all things that we offer here that help with health optimization. There are things that people largely can do on their own. There's also the whole body vibration, the vibration plates that stimulate lymphatics to initiate detoxification and clearance from the body. These are all things that are going to benefit you that we offer right here currently.
Okay. What else?
I think that's good.
That's good for biohacking today?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Is there anything else we need to say about biohacking? I will tell you.
It just seems like there's a lot of people wearing Oura rings and Whoop bands. And I remember when I had my Apple Watch,
I'm glad you said that.
I would like wake up and look at the dang screen and like hope that I had a good night's sleep. And it was very helpful. Apple Watch helped me understand, what does 10,000 steps feel like?
Yeah.
It's a lot more than I thought.
Yeah.
But I know there's like a loop near my house. That'll get me 10,000 steps. It's about 3.5 miles. If I do that, I'll get some random walk throughout the day. I'll get so it gave me tools in the toolkit.
So data.
It gave me data.
Yeah.
But it made me realize I know when I had a good night's sleep or not. I know what 10,000 steps feels like. I don't like the anxiety of waking up and be like, did I have a good health score? Did I have a good sleep score? Yeah. And then when I wasn't walking enough or wasn't working out, it would be like, your data has gone down. It's like, no crap, Sherlock. Yeah, like, I know it has. I don't need you telling me that. Yeah. So I don't know. For me, it was like, it was enough. But I know that the whole industry has taken off and people love it.
Yeah, I think data is important if it can be used wisely. I do think data is, like I said, critical. One of our very first recommendations, I think I put a note in here, but I didn't say it, but one of my very first recommendations, or my pre-recommendation, was ultimately to make sure that you have annual blood work and that you have extensive labs taken every year, at least annually, if not more regularly, because you need the data, you need the information. And how can you biohack, and how can you see if your biohacking is even of any benefit if you're not getting the data? And so, is it important? Well, it can be valuable to do the Whoop, to do the Oura Ring, to do those things. It can be valuable to see what's happening data-wise. But absolutely, if it's more frustrating because you're in a place in your life where it's just not possible to meet the demands that it's wanting you to meet, then it's actually just causing more anxiety than otherwise. And so it really has to be mitigated with, okay, am I in a direction or headed in a direction that's going to be ultimately supporting the data that I'm wanting to collect?
There it is. Well, at 40 years old almost, I can kind of start to listen to my body, and I'm grateful for that. But maybe you're a little bit earlier on in your life, or you're pursuing elite athletic activity. There's probably a million reasons why Whoop and Oura work for people.
If you want to get better, if you want to reach a little bit higher, if you want to climb that next mountain, if you want to go on that next trip.
Totally.
We had a patient the other day who said, you know what, I wasn't going to go on a trip, but now after coming here, I'm going to do my trip. He's done it every year. And his doctor, he's with his cardiologist, and he said he wasn't going to be able to do it. And since coming here and doing acupuncture, that was actually one of the big things that turned him around was acupuncture. He said, you know what, I think I'm going to do my trip. So that's what we're looking for.
It wasn't an Oura ring that got him.
It wasn't data. It was acupuncture. So
there's a place for the real thing still in this world.
There is.
Maybe there's the biggest place for the real thing.
Data's only as good as those interpreting it.
And with that, another episode of the Be Well Now podcast. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully everyone's being well.
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Be well.